All right, so how do we make hacking and how do we make cybersecurity more interesting for kids? Well, today we are going to be talking a little bit about hacking. And we're going to be talking about ways that we can make hacking more interesting. And I'm going to show you three different examples. This is going to be kind of fun, I hope, for you. And so, for anybody who is joining us for the first time, my name is Dr. Ed, and I'm just a geek dad who's obsessed about the future. And one of the things that I've been reading a lot about has been everybody saying you need to have way more cybersecurity. We need to have way more cybersecurity hygiene, right? Or information security hygiene. So I want to talk a little bit about, well, how do we even make that interesting? Like, why would kids care about it? And I think that it may be the case that they don't really care about cybersecurity by itself, but they care about like hacking and breaking into things. To me, like I see it as a type of escape room, right? If you had an escape room for your kids, would they not find that super interesting? Wouldn't they just have like so much fun just doing that? And I think that if we consider cybersecurity as it's the same as home security, like you teach your kids these are the keys to our house. Don't just leave your keys anywhere. Like secure them. We teach our kids how to keep themselves safe. From crossing the street when there are other cars around. I think that we need to learn about cyber safety. Um, um, there are different ways you can teach it. One way to teach cyber safety would be simply, oh, like, don't do this and don't do that. But I think it's not the right approach. And the reason for this is we don't want an environment where kids are scared of technology per se. We want something where they're willing to try stuff. And so that is what I'm going to focus a little bit on today. And I'm going to see if I can bring up a little bit of a intro, just an intro video. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what does this mean. And so, kids meet a hacker. Okay, well, why don't we start with that one? All right. Hold on a sec. Of course, it's going to grr. Okay, give me a second. 2, 1. Okay. Oh no! Oh no!
Is the passcode a long one?
What? Are you trying to hack? Hello.
I'm Brian.
Nice to meet you, Brian.
Nice to meet you. Nice to
I'm
meet
Nolan.
you.
What are we going to do today?
Well, I am a computer hacker.
Cool. Computer hacker. You're a hacker?
Mm-hmm.
No more information. Tell me one of the things you hacked.
Banks.
Cool.
Banks are really cool.
Did you get in trouble for that?
I don't get in trouble for that. People pay me to do that.
Cool.
Even cooler, right?
Are you a good hacker or a bad hacker?
I'm a good hacker who pretends to be a bad hacker.
How does that work?
In order to defend against bad hackers, you have to sometimes think like a bad hacker. So we emulate what Russia or China would do if they wanted to try and get into an oil rig.
I see. Other countries was trying to hack into oil rigs?
Yeah, so they can cause some catastrophic explosion and change the prices of oil globally.
That's very sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hack into
Did you see their expressions? I love that. The kids are really like, wow, that's so cool. You learned to hack. That's like amazing. I actually think that that's a really great kind of introduction, just to show that hacking itself is cool. It is something that kids really want to do. And if we want to teach hacking to our kids, we have to teach them that it isn't like this thing that only certain people can do. Anyone can pick up this skill, and they should know a little bit about the basics of hacking, because it will help them create passwords that are more secure, and it shows you how easily things can be hacked. And the reality is, it is not hard. It is not hard at all in order to hack things. And to do that, I'm going to show you a little example. So I don't know if I've never done this before. uh, okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you something. Ooh, what's this new presentation? No, I don't want to share a presentation. I just want to share a screen. Share screen. Yes. Oh, cool. I have it as a new input now. Yay. Okay. So you can see my screen now in this side. And what I'm going to do is just show you kind of like a real simulation. So this particular site is called tryhackme.com. So anybody, like if you guys are joining me live, you can ask questions anytime. You just post it in the chat. And maybe before I start with that, just as a reminder, this is AI Parenting Live, and we are located at aiparenting.live. If you want to learn a little bit more, sign up for our email list. You can sign up there. And of course, if you have any questions, you can just post them into the chat. That's one of the reasons why we are doing this live. And I'm Dr. Ed. I'm just a geek dad who's obsessed about the future. And so today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ways of hacking. And then the first one that we're going to play with is TryHackMe. So tryhackme.com. And it's just a free, the intro version is free. So what I'm showing you is nothing that I've paid for. And these aren't sponsored, by the way. I'm just looking for different sources for you that I thought might be useful. So tryhackme.com is what I'm trying first. And I'll mention some books and some other material that you can read just in a moment. So tryhackme.com. Boom. Okay, cool. And if you like this video, you can just give me a thumbs up, give me a like, subscribe if you are interested in more things related to tech. That's basically what this channel is all about. Okay, so let's start off. Boom. And we're going to talk about this one. So this is called tryhackme.com. And in the free version, they have something called the beginner path. And we're going to understand how the web works. And so in this particular example, we're going to try a social media example. And I don't know if you can see this. What happens if I zoom? Does it work? Oh, it is working. Okay, cool. All right, so it says you are an ethical hacker, and it is your job to identify vulnerabilities on Bookface. So let's just pretend this is like a pretend Facebook, and let's try to take over a user's account. So let's do that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is Bookface lets users have public profiles. And if you notice the URL, it's showing a profile's username. So let's copy this and see if we can reset Ben's password. And so we're going to try hacking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to choose copy. I'm going to copy, his name is Bookface Ben.Spring. So that is his username. And this could be searched by anybody. Like if you go and visit, they typically have a profile and there's usually a URL that represents their username. And so that's the way that we're going to hack this guy. And so I've copied his password. And it's common for attackers to target the password reset functionality in order to look for issues that let them gain access to users' accounts. So let's enter Ben's username and click reset password. So we're going to go down to this website, and I'm just going to enter his username, Ben.Spring. And so in this book face, like there's always a forget password. We've seen this before. And this is a vulnerability that we can hack. And so all I have to do is just type in ben.spring and hit reset password. You will be emailed a 4-digit code to verify that it's you. So I'll click reset. And it goes code sent. We have sent you an email with the 4-digit code. Now, of course, it can be more complicated than that. But account resets are usually, they send an additional code to the user's email to verify that they actually triggered the password reset. Ben will have received an email with a 4-digit code, but we don't have access to his email. So I wonder if we can still guess the code. So there are 10,000 different combinations of codes that we can enter. We could try increasing them one by one, like 0001, then 0002, but that would take forever. So try inputting any random reset code. So here I'm going to enter in a random reset code. It goes, what is your code? How about, I don't know, 0001, submit. And it goes, the code 0001 is incorrect. Oh no, what can I do? And so when you submitted a code in the form, your web browser made a web request to Bookface with the relevant form data. And then I can actually break down what that web request is. Click me to break down the web request. Don't worry if you don't fully understand what a web request is. It's covered later in the Try Hack Me lab. And so the web request is down here. And you can see it's a post request that has been made to that website. The user agent is Chrome. And the host is Bookface. And then it just says reset code equals this, 0001. And the username is ben.spring. And so if I could build a program to submit this, then I could effectively brute force this password. I could just run through 1,000 of these really quickly. And that's what computers are really, really great at doing. And so let's go back up here and look at those instructions. So it's not going to be possible to manually guess every code. So let's repeat the code request we sent earlier each time and increase the code value, automating the process using request repeater below. So we have a little program that does repeats of requests. And the process of trying different combinations until one is correct is called brute forcing, a common attack used in cybersecurity. So use the brute force tool with a code minimum of 1 and a maximum of 10,000 in value. And so here, instead of just typing in, like I could go 0002, and then it's not correct, 0003, that would take forever. But for a computer, they love doing these things. So all I have to do is type in a minimum code, maybe 1, and a maximum code of 10,000. And I have this brute force web request repeater. And so all I have to do is just run that a bunch of times on this app. So I'm going to click that button, brute force, hiya. And you see what it did? It just like kept requesting. You can see the number and it said code 0187 is correct. So now I have the correct reset code because I brute forced it until it gave me the correct answer. Does that make sense? So now I can keep requesting the same thing over and over and over again. So congratulations, by brute forcing all the code combinations, you've managed to get the code value to reset Ben's password. Each time you request a password reset, the reset code will be different and will need to be re-brute forced. But that's pretty easy to do. You reset Ben's password to continue. And so we know that 187 is the correct number. So 0187, and I'm going to press the reset. Haha, yes, password has been reset. The answer to the try hack me task is blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's the thing. You think that like this is kind of not a, like, is this, come on, this has got to be too easy. Well, it turns out this was a real world attack that before it was patched, let you take over anyone's Instagram account. This was used on Instagram. The hacker that found it reported it to Instagram and received a $10,000 reward. It's important that you understand how web applications work. Once you have a good understanding of the web, then this Try Hack Me will teach you about new cyber attacks and tools used in the industry. by penetration testers and security analysts. And so that's just one example. And I hope that I'm catching everyone here based on what I've shown. So really simple. All it was an attempt to brute force a password by just sending a bunch of requests to the password reset um, page. And that's all he did, is just he sent a bunch of requests like, this is how we reset things. And so I hope that's making sense for anyone, for everyone. And if you have any questions like, oh, how did that work? But to me, like, was that hard? No. Could any kid do that? Yeah, like, I mean, it still requires you to be able to read. But I mean, what are we talking about here? Copying, pasting, um, typing in a minimum and a maximum. What does that teach us? What do we learn? What is the reflection from an activity like this? To me, it's pretty basic. It's these sites can be hacked easily. And in fact, this is how Instagram was hacked. So thinking that, oh, my stuff is on Facebook or on Instagram, it's going to be so secure, my password is so secure. No, right? Like it means that it's very likely that your password is going to be compromised or your account could be taken over. And so the question is, well, if somebody takes over your account, what do they get? What are we giving them access to? And so in this case, we're giving them access to all of your Instagram photos. And so just keep in mind, like, this is a good opportunity for reflection. And so that is one way. And I like it because it's very interactive. And I think increasingly we just need more interactive ways to teach our kids about hacking. And so within, what was that, 5 minutes of activity, maybe with kids, like let's say you're doing this with like fairly young ones, maybe it takes like 15 minutes to get everything set up, or 20 minutes. I mean, they've learned hacking in a super short amount of time. And this is only one form of hacking, of course. There are many different types, but it's kind of this constant cat and mouse game. Somebody has like some kind of interface and you're just trying to figure out, how can I get access to their password, or how can I get access to their account very, very quickly. So was that useful? Was that helpful? Let me know in the chat. Like, I'd love to see. And thank you so much for all those who are joining me live on the Amazon live today. I really appreciate it. And I want to keep going because I think they have some really good examples here. There are other ones. So one that I enjoy a lot as well. Let's see if I can bring it up. So this one is just information, just about how somebody hacked Target. So let's take a look at that example. So, and at any point in time, feel free to post your questions. Let me know what your questions are. And if you are able to, like, say you like this or this is useful for you, you can put a flame in the chat. You can say, hey, this is useful. That would be really helpful. It helps us know if we're on the right track. Okay, let's go back to our Try Hack Me site, and we're going to go and learn a little bit more about hacking together. So here we go. So this is how Target got hacked and had $110 million of credit cards stolen. So in 2013, Target, the retail company in the US, was hacked, with the attackers stealing credit cards from over 110 million customers. And it all started with an air conditioning unit. Air conditioning? Yes, it was the hack in action. Let's go and see it. All on the same network is the main issue. So the attack occurred at Target's air conditioning units. They could be controlled remotely to monitor the store's temperatures, but they were also connected to Target's main store. So the way that this attack worked is the attacker hacked an aircon unit that was actually connected to the main target network, which is connected to all of its point of sale machines, all its tills, and to other computers. And so this meant that the attacker could literally compromise the entire network using the smart air conditioning unit, which had a built in computer. And it could access other machines within the store, such as checkout tills. It could access to steal the credit card information. And so this is really significant. And so let's keep going. Being on the same network as other machines means that as you are the most likely at the moment, being at home or work, led to an attacker scanning the network, finding unusually private machines with vulnerabilities and exploiting them. And so this is how it works. It's like your security of your entire network is based on the weakest device. And if your weakest device in terms of security is your air conditioning unit, then everything else can be compromised. And so that gives you a sense of how easy it is to hack things. And so what's the impact of this? How much did this cost? Well, the air conditioning units were not directly owned by Target. In fact, they were owned by another third-party company to help Target monitor the store's temperature. And if the company had been properly segmented, and so what does segmentation mean? It just means you have to separate one device from the other, or maybe have them on different networks. So to keep Target's network and the air conditioning unit machines separate, the attack would not have been so severe. So again, it was because of segmentation that caused this problem. What was the cost? $300 million. $300 million was the amount it cost Target in a data breach lawsuits. So can you imagine like just the amount of that? Target was even using a $1.6 million malware detection tool, which was also being used by the CIA and the Pentagon. But attackers managed to fool the detection by pretending to be legitimate computer network traffic. Right? So even these malware detection tools were easily bypassed. They didn't have to do much just by pretending that, oh yeah, this is like regular computer traffic. I'm not trying to totally hack your system. And that's really scary because like this thing, communication to the site was compromised because it looked like network traffic. And I think the reason for that is somebody had to create some exception. Maybe this requires a bit of an explanation as to what I mean. So essentially, in order to make it so that the air conditioning unit could communicate with the main network, there probably had to be some permissions allowed for air conditioning unit to communicate with the network. It was just like opened up. Like they opened up a port, for example. And so now when things were sent, they were like, well, you're expecting some traffic between the air conditioner and the other unit. So they just try to replicate the same type of communications that the air conditioner does, but you add a little bit more data, which is people's credit card information. And you just transfer that slowly over time. It looks like legit traffic. But it's not hard to do that once the system itself is compromised. And so that is, that is something that is a little bit of a concern, but something to keep in mind. Okay, so now we're gonna keep going. Hopefully you can see the screen. Yes, okay, cool. I'm gonna zoom in again. Yeah, okay. So next, so basically to understand this, it explains why learning networking is important. You got to know how computers talk to each other over a network and how data travels from 2 points. It allows you to understand what happens when you start scanning a network. That is, when you're connected to your own home network or you're connected to a work network, there are many other computers that are there too. And so they all become vulnerable. And so finding machines and finding weaknesses in applications and systems is what a lot of hackers do. They always find what is the weakest point. And so to pull this off, the attackers need to understand the networking basics, and having this knowledge is powerful, giving you the ability to know where your machines sit in a network and even inspect network traffic. Anything you do online has a footprint. Yes, even incognito mode. You think like incognito means like you're not visible, but that's unfortunately not true. And so something to keep in mind is that's a little bit about the security side, how hacking is done. And so just try Hack Me if you haven't tried it out. That's one site that you can use for learning. Another site that has been explored is maybe I'll just bring it up on this page. It'll be easier. Immersive labs, webinars. Yeah. So there are different ways of learning cybersecurity. And so what I might recommend is, just start with something like you don't have to go and hack directly if you want. You can actually go to websites such as Immersive Labs. I hope this will work. Yeah. And so this one has like immersivelabs.com, I believe is the URL. And then from here, you have a number of different webinars that you could just access for free, right? So they're doing webinars like regularly. And so essentially Log4Shell, do's and don'ts, FAP security, understanding the risks, improving incident weaknesses in the software supply. And so this is more adult. It requires a little bit more technology expertise to understand, but in the end, like getting access to this is free. So if I want to just watch them, they're just something that's accessible, right? But you do need to give them your account and your email, and so that's one type as well. So the next type, so it's immersivelabs.com. Maybe I'll just drop that into the chat as well. Boom. So immersivelabs.com. That's another tool that you can use that I would recommend looking out for. And then the last I'm going to show is Hack the Box. And it was a fun activity because hackthebox.com actually has an environment, like an actual computer that you can do hacking on. And they have a number of examples for that one. And so I want to show you, maybe I can bring this up here, hackthebox.com. But in the meantime, before I transition from one to the other, let me know, what's your questions? Let me know what I can answer for you. Thank you for joining me on Twitch. Thank you for joining me on the different platforms. I do appreciate it. All right, so here's what I want to do. So this one. Yes, there we go. So this is the Hack the Box system. You can take a look at it, and it just has a little virtual environment that one can use for hacking. And inside it, it has things like a terminal. It has an online system. Like it actually is a virtual computer that you log into that allows you to try to actually hack it. And so this is like a real world hack of it. And I tried their initial one where you just like log in and you just type in a shell. It's like inside the browser, you have a virtual machine and then you can actually do some hacking on it. So that's hackthebox.com. I think that you are able to try like one virtual machine per day for free. And so I've been using that in order to simulate, okay, like you have one hacking exercise, say a network hacking exercise, you can do one of those a day. And so you just have to figure out which ones you want to do. And so that's an easy kind of another fun, but it's a little bit more advanced than the one I had just showed you. And I want to talk a little bit about like the videos that you see. There might be some really good it's hacked dad's computer on a Raspberry Pi. And there's so many good examples. And I like, the examples where kids are doing it because it shows you how feasible it is. And so maybe I'll show you one more example. And I want to show you hacking my dad's computer. And so this girl is going to talk a little bit about how she hacked her dad's computer. But I imagine that she, like, her dad actually is like a computer scientist, so somebody who knows what they're doing in that space. And so that's the problem, is you typically need somebody to train you, but that's kind of what we typically look at anyways. So anyways, let's take a look at this video. Here we go.
But don't fear, I got my mum's permission before I did this. Because it involves shell, I'll put up a few videos, well, lots of videos to show you more about the shell and teach. That night, you're lying in bed thinking, if only you had your dad's password, you could connect to his shell from your shell and play just a clean genius trick on him. That night, you can't sleep, you can't eat breakfast, and school seems to take so long, when all you want to do is get back to your Raspberry Pi to start plotting. I'm going to SSH into my dad's computer. SSH stands for Secure Shell. So first we need to type in SSH Alex at 192.168.1.27.
So I love how she's like typing in just a local IP address of her Raspberry Pi. And Raspberry Pis are very commonly used, like they have the high compute 4. And I think I'll be starting to explore Raspberry Pi a little bit more in some of our future episodes, because I think it's highly underrated. Like essentially we're talking about a computer, right? Raspberry Pi. For the lowest cost possible. And I plan on using Raspberry Pi, especially the 4 version, to do some of the hacks and some of the stuff I want for the metaverse streaming. Like metaverse, to me, live streaming is you have like virtual background and a virtual foreground. It's kind of like an augmented reality type of live streaming. I think more people are starting to explore this, but I think that there's more that we can do if we connect it to a Raspberry Pi. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future episode. So if you want to learn more, make sure that you like, you subscribe, you sign up for some notifications on this software, because I think it's very, very interesting. Okay, so let's go back into the Raspberry Pi. Let's see how she's hacking it. And here we go.
Alex is his username, and all the complicated numbers is his IP address plus where his computer is.
Okay, skip. She's spending some time
The
typing
password is well done. If you want to know more about how I got his IP address and his password, I'll tell you in another video. Isn't it amazing that I've got my shell on my computer, well, Raspberry Pi, and my dad has got his.
So this is her
If
hacking.
we type in top -u min,
So she's done a listing.
this will show you all of his
Now
processes
she's
and
looking
programs that are running on his
all
computer.
the tasks.
And because he works on a Macintosh, they've got slightly different processes and programs that are running. So, look, we might find them
She's
familiar, like
looking at all of
Finder.
the different
That's
types. We're going to get to the.
Why is my computer talking to me?
So say -v, Serena,
hi,
Dad.
Get after.
nothing.
Why are you videoing?
Just for
Out.
some.
Dad, watch out! Right, why is my computer talking to me?
Nothing really.
You timed an MP3 to play on my
No.
computer. I've been away.
No.
Scale 9.
That's why you're videoing.
No. Hopefully that's closed Sublime Text. Has it worked? Yes! Yes, it's worked. My evil plan come true.
How cute is that, right? Like, I love that. So really, you can see like just the excitement, like this is a game. They really enjoy doing it. And who would not love to hack their dad's computer, right? Like the most fun thing ever. So I feel like this is a really strong learning opportunity. You get them, you teach them activity. It's like once you have this, you'll be able to secure shell. We'll show you how to obtain a password. Kind of, it could be the brute force method, or it could be whatever method you choose. And then once you have it, you've got this kind of big reward at the end. So it kind of is like an escape room. Reminds me of like, yeah, like it reminds me of like what you would typically see in an escape room. It's just an intellectual exercise. And in it, you're developing critical thinking skills. You're developing some understanding of good cybersecurity hygiene. You're developing some understanding that things can be hacked. Nothing is really secure. And when you have that understanding, I think that that's going to make all of us a little bit more aware, a little bit more conscious of what is happening. And I think this is important for kids to know, because these are the same kids who are going to be online. They're going to be posting stuff, and they're going to be thinking, maybe falsely, that, oh, everything that they're working with is so secure. And the reality is it's not, right? It is easily hackable, right? It does not take much for somebody to compromise the exact system. And so with that, I want to leave a little bit of time to talk a little bit about my thinking. And so with AI parenting, we've been focused over the last couple episodes just on understanding a little bit about content security, like information security. Last time on Wednesday, I talked about eating your password. Instead of being creative, like don't create a password, generate a password, because things are so easy to hack these days. And you're going to be constantly asked for new passwords anyways, because systems will be hacked on a regular basis. You get those notification emails like, oh, just want to let you know that there was a major breach. And by the way, we let all of your information, like we leaked all of your information accidentally. Sorry about that. That is becoming more and more common these days. And so that's why it's more important to have some password manager. And then one question that was really good from Wednesday's session from Jasmine was, so like what happens if your device gets hacked or the 1Password gets hacked? And that's really the question, is like, it's not a matter of, oh, like my stuff is probably secure. It's like, well, when my stuff gets hacked, what do they get access to? Are your passwords stored in a encrypted database? Is it stored as plain text in a note? That's going to be a problem, right? Like when it does get hacked, then they have access to everything. Or do they just get a bunch of gibberish that is like an SHA encrypted bit of information? And that's the same goes for companies as well. Like if you're storing a plain text password in 2020, you're doing it wrong. Don't do that. You want to make sure that you're just storing hashes of people's passwords. So worst case scenario, sorry, we got hacked. We didn't release any passwords though, because we only store the hashes. So we don't actually know what your password is originally. And we're just going to reset the hash to a different number. And as a result, like everybody needs to reset their password. And so the worst case scenario is that you just need to reset your password on first login. And so those types of good hygiene is becoming more and more important. And the reason I say that is because at the start of the Russian, and this is like the hashtag I stand with Ukraine, there were a number of cybersecurity researchers who are saying, make sure that you have good cybersecurity hygiene. Make sure that you are updated to the latest versions of the operating system or the latest patches. And why were they saying that? What was the purpose of making those statements? My feeling is the purpose for those statements was that you have to understand that in this new age of cyber warfare, like warfare is not limited to the physical domain. In fact, very little of it is happening in the physical domain. More and more of it is happening in the cyber security in the digital domain, and more and more of it is happening through the use of drones, militarized drones. Like, yes, technically, a human is not allowed to cross international borders and start bombing people, but the same restrictions don't exist for drones, and so they fly over borders all the time. They don't need no passports. They don't need like clearance in the same way. And so understanding that this is all enabled because of technology and their ability to like remotely connect to this drone and trigger things like airstrikes is a big component of that. Like, so understanding that like security is kind of like, how do I describe this? Like, you know how you're in a like at home, people are trying to keep themselves secure, like they're buying better locks, right? Or maybe they're buying a security system or something like that. It's like, what is your security system for the digital assets that you have in your own home? How are you protecting yourself? We need to think about that as well. The way I've heard it described when I was going to school, and this was like, oh my gosh, like years and years ago, I don't want to date myself, was that it's kind of like imagine that on that internet connection of yours is tens of thousands, if not millions of people, like trying to like break open your doors. They're trying to like get through the keys. They're trying to look at all the windows, if there's any windows open. They're constantly looking for vulnerabilities. And that's the way that you have to treat access to your network, to the internet, just because it is that easy. It is that easy to get in. I know that some internet service providers will try to look at to see if you're compromised, but it's not hard. So checking your security by yourself, it becomes more and more the responsibility of the customer. And so I hope that that was informative. I hope it was helpful for you. And it's one of the reasons why I say, like, what I described is a type of coding, right? And in this new online world that we exist in, I've been saying this time and time again, is that data, like for companies, is the new oil, but for data for citizens is your new vote, right? It's your vote. With like giving that company your data is how you vote on the internet. And understanding coding, understanding AI, that's the new law on the internet. If you understand how to hack it, essentially you're just understanding how to hack the law, right? You're people who understand how the law works and they know exactly how to work around it. They tend to be highly profitable, or they tend to find like new financial mechanisms that perhaps are not regulated right now. Like it could be bad as well, right? Like hedge funds, certain hedge funds that were investing a lot, caused a lot of the financial crisis. The mortgage-backed securities, for example, was just another example of that. Well, what's the mortgage-backed security in the cyber world? It's basically hacking, right? Like what we described today, it's like somebody brute forcing passwords. That's the mortgage-backed security of that environment. And in fact, like one of the biggest risks for anybody investing in crypto or anybody investing in other forms of like online currency is that people will hack. Like it's fairly easy to hack accounts, right? So people are investing tens of thousands into the latest, crypto or NFT, and then they find, oh, my account got hacked. It was really easy. They found my password, and I was using the same password for my crypto wallet. Like to a certain extent, that's way easier than mining a bunch of Bitcoin. I got to buy computers and stuff for that. Like hacking your account just because you didn't have a secure password is probably by far the easiest way to get crypto these days. And if they can properly mask their IP address, you can never find them, right? And that information or that money is going to be theirs. And so that's one of the challenges these days, is that we are not prepared for the type of cyber warfare that is out there actively investigating us, hacking our own devices. And yeah, like people getting access to your account is pretty typical, and that's why it's so important to be on the latest updates. Otherwise, like it's very easy for your account to get compromised. So that's all I have for today. I want to thank you for joining, and if you haven't already, go visit aiparenting.live. Go and sign up for our email lists, because we're going to be doing a bunch of live streams soon. I think the first topic I'm covering I probably will do it next week, is the live stream on camera presence. So it's been 2 years of Zoom, and I think it's about time that we start learning a little bit about how do we become more present online? How do we make ourselves more visible online? How do we make our sound a little bit clearer? And that's something that I've been constantly working on, constantly improving. And it's something I want to share with you. I think there are a few key principles, not technical principles. They're just like basics of things that you need to know. And they're timeless principles. They don't change with new technology. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, make sure that you go to aiparenting.live. I put up a couple books. One's for like coding for kids. So, we sometimes want to teach coding. I actually think you should also teach AI for kids, because they're already doing this in China. If you're in kindergarten, they're starting to teach you AI. So I think it's very important. Like there's a bunch of Google AI experiments that are really fantastic to try. So I'd highly recommend that. But teaching AI, I have to cover. I've covered it in a different session. Go and visit my channel, like AI Parenting, is on YouTube as well. Teachers changing the game, coding for kids in Python. Python is a good one to learn because that one is going to specifically talk about the technical side of how computers work. And I think next time I might dive a little bit more into how computers see, right? How AI does vision, how like some basics about convolutional neural networks and why that might lead to certain types of bias when it comes to face recognition systems or vision recognition systems. Code Cracking for Kids is another book. Hacking the Code, Cyber Safe for Humans is another one. And of course, I also have a link to the Raspberry Pi. So if you want to learn more about that stuff, you can go and visit my site, aiparenting.live, or just like and comment. Thank you. I will see you again soon next week.